to bring your whole self to the meeting. And so if you are able to turn on your cameras, it'd be great for us to see somebody other than each other, because we see each other a lot. So if you feel the need and can turn on your cameras, that'd be awesome. That makes for a little bit better interaction for us because we see you. There you lovely faces are this morning. Awesome. And Heather and I have a couple of pictures of sharing some of our activities. Let's see, Heather's is a cold weather activity and mine was a summer activity, fishing in Sitka. Anybody from Sitka on here today? Nope. Oh, well, it's a good place to go fishing in Sitka. So with that, we are going to do a centering activity. So in the chat box, I would like you to put one of these 5 things. This is an activity that lots of school counselors may use. I would love for you to put 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, or 1 thing that you can taste. This is a great activity to do with students, with other adults, with yourself. Again, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, or 1 thing that you can taste. Who's going to be daring? There we go. Oatmeal. Hi, Julie. Welcome, Rep Hopkins. We've got some coffee, a whiteboard, fire cracking. I had an interesting something I could hear last night as I was sitting in our living room and watching TV. I heard a bang, bang. And I was like, what is that? And I looked out the window and I'm right here on Twin Lakes in Juneau. And I saw this car spinning. And it obviously had ricocheted off of the guardrails last night. And I was like, I probably need to call 911 as they were like slowly moving away. But then I saw a cop slowly driving. So if you're here in Juneau, drive carefully. Those roads are slick out there. And like I said, this is a great SEL, trauma, engaged, anxiety, stress, relieving activity that you can do if you're working with students that are kind of loose and out there. So we'll go on to the next slide. And thank you for those who put stuff into the chat box for us this morning. The purpose of our presentation today is to root our conversation in the Transforming Schools framework and toolkit. And this is the framework and the toolkit. I have another order of these coming, so I'm going to put my email in the chat box. And if you would like one of these for your staff or just for yourself to take a look at, send me an email with your name and your address and how many copies you would like. I have enough to give you a copy for everyone in your school. I've got another 3,000 coming, and so I've already sent out 5,500 of them to Alaska schools. So let's make your school one of those also. And what we're going to be exploring today is the 3 components of SEL. We're going to talk a little bit about adult social emotional learning. We're going to talk about relationship building, and then we're going to talk about direct skill instruction. What we hope is that you'll walk away with 3 goals focused on strategies and or resources that you might want to try out. We want you to leave strengthened and uplifted by our statewide community. Our agenda, we did the welcome with the 5 senses. We're going to do a gathering circle. We're going to talk about the Transforming Schools framework and toolkit, direct instruction component. We're going to talk about adult SEL, flying through the air grounding, relationship building, bio break grounding. We'll take a break about in the middle of our session today, and SEL instruction, and then we'll do a debrief and closing circle.
So we're going to be working a lot in the chat box today. That'll be a primary way that we're connecting. We also will have 2 times that we go into smaller group breakout rooms. So we'll be able to connect as a large group and then also connect in smaller groups. So I'm going to take this opportunity to give land acknowledgement for those of us here in Juneau. We are on the land of Aquan people, and we honor and respect this relationship to the land. So as we are here together today in this space, this virtual space, I really encourage you to think about whose land you are on. And you know, the thing is that social and emotional learning is not a new concept. It's just a new, maybe edu-speak or research speak for skills that have been taught for thousands and thousands of years. And so take this opportunity as we're here today, as you're thinking about your own communities, the cultures within which you are living, thinking about the families that you work with. Take this opportunity to consider the cultural, community, family values that you are living within, and think about how will you build your SEL practice on these values and these skills. So really take that opportunity today. On this slide, you see our agreements for today. And as we are in the midst of pandemic together, I think these agreements are even more important as we think about coming into this space together, to really listening to understand each other, bringing our whole selves, like we invited you on that opening slide, that invitation to bring your whole self. That's what makes you a leader. All of the roles that you are in right now, that makes you a leader. We're really going to focus on challenges to solutions today. That's a benefit of all being together in the Zoom room. Hopefully we'll be laughing, smiling together today. That lifts our spirits, that helps us. And just that quick reminder to take care of yourself. That helps you be whole and a contributing member. That helps you take care of each other too. So these are agreements. They come from First Alaskans Institute. And in the toolkit, you'll find oodles of resources that can help you set agreements with staff and with students. All right. So our gathering circle to launch us off, another grounding activity to help us really be in this space together. One of our agreements is value our time together. And so let's really be here together. So in the chat box, what we'd like you to do, well, first, rename yourself in the participant menu, if you would. As we gather virtually, if you could rename yourself using your first name, your community, that will help us locate each other across the state, and then the pronouns that you prefer. So you can do that by clicking on your name in the participant menu and then clicking on rename. You can also do it by clicking on your video. The 3 dots that come up can bring up the rename menu also. So again, that just helps us know our names and where we are across the state. So take a minute and do that. And then in the chat box, type in your name, your community, the roles that you're in, and then what 2 words describe how you are in this moment. What you see on the slide is Ruler's mood meter that helps us think about words that describe our emotions, helps us think about the pleasantness of our emotions, where we are on that continuum, and where we are on the continuum of energy. So take a look at the mood meter and then type into the chat box your name, community, roles, and what are 2 words that describe your emotions right now. And maybe the words are on the mood meter, maybe they're not on the mood meter, so totally fine too. So give folks a moment to do that. And we welcome all emotions into the circle. So thanks. I see folks renaming themselves. That's really helpful. And looks like folks are, I can see intent looks on people's faces as you're considering how you're feeling in this moment. Okay, so energized.
Anxious, a calm and curious.
Got peaceful, grateful. We have Anchorage. Welcome Anchorage into the room. Welcome Suzanne, virtual community into the room. And Julie and Matsu, Haynes. Vanessa, thanks. At ease, hopeful.
How do you do the renaming part again?
Sure. So if you bring up the participant menu, which is the menu that has like a little silhouette of people, you can click on your name, scroll through, find your name. And on the blue More button, if you click that, there's an option to rename yourself. You could also click on the 3 dots. If you have your video camera on, you can click on those 3 dots. If you hover over your video image, and then you can click on rename too. Thanks for that. All right. Drained and thoughtful. Thanks, Tanya. Easygoing, grateful. Thanks, Jana. Great. Who did I miss here? Nathan, Keely, fatigued, hopeful. Kelly and Juneau, good to see you. Thankful, open. Teresa and Barrow, fatigued and grateful. So we really do welcome in all emotions, and we know that emotions really matter for learning, and for us as adults, they really matter for our job performance. They matter for our relationships. So they're really mattering throughout the whole day as we make decisions and as we are working with students and families and our colleagues. So they're important to create the space for emotions. You'll see throughout our slides that we have some hyperlinks in the slide to resources that are helpful. There's a great article that has an activity associated with it. At the end of the workshop, I'll pull in a PDF of our slides. So you'll be able to have that PDF with the live links so you can easily access the resources that we're talking about. And I just really like this quote, which is about acknowledging that our feelings all are welcome and not beat ourselves up for having them. They're not good or bad, they just are. So creating that space for them, and we want to create that space today. Another resource on a feelings inventory, a way to create language about feelings, a vocabulary about feelings, which I know is something I struggle with, is having that vocabulary and using it. So try out that resource. So I'll put it over to you, Sharon, to give us a very brief tour.
Okay, so as I kind of mentioned when I mentioned the in the agenda for today, in January of 2019, the department and the Association of Alaska School Boards and several other partners, First Alaskans, the Alaska Mental Health Board, and there were several others that helped put together our Transforming Schools, a trauma engaged framework for Alaska. And again, if you want a copy or 50 copies for your school, just let me know. But in August, we also released the online toolkit to go with our framework. And Heather, I think you have to drive. So if you go to the department's main page and you go to the middle, you will find a picture that looks very similar to this, and that will take you to our trauma page. And on that page, if you scroll down, it'll tell you about the project, who all our partners were. You can find a PDF of the framework if you would prefer to have a PDF, but if you can have a real copy, the artwork in there is from a lady in McCarthy. It's Alaskan artwork, and it's very cool. I can send you those. And then we have our toolkit. And Heather, before we go to the toolkit, let's scroll down. And we have our online e-learning resources that are all available and free to all Alaskans for you to take. None of these are mandatory. They are just there for your education. And so if we go to the toolkit, and that'll take you to this nice series of bubbles, and on all of these bubbles go to a section of the toolkit that also corresponds with the chapters in the framework. And so we're going to go to skill instruction, because that's what we're talking about today. And skill instruction, we have a quote on the top. We wanted social emotional learning to help us challenge the culture in our school, but we realized that the change starts with us. SEL has brought our staff closer together. And for each one of the sections of the toolkit, it'll talk about what the section is about. If there is any community adaptations, let's scroll down, Heather. There we go. And then it'll also give you strategies for leadership and strategies for staff. And this happens for each section of the toolkit. And under each of those strategies, there's going to be a list of resources that are a companion to that strategy. You want to click one of them, Heather? Which one you want to click?
I'm going to click on for staff, because we're going to be exploring staff steps today.
Okay. And so under what staff can do, the strategy she clicked on is reflect on and grow your own SEL and self-regulation skills, model healthy SEL skills with colleagues, students, and families. And so as you can see underneath that, there's a series of different resources that the links will take you to for that particular strategy. And again, for every strategy that's in the toolkit, there is a list of resources to go with it.
Thanks, Sharon. So today we are going to be, oh, sorry, do you want to talk about
That's okay.
this?
Keep going. You're fine.
Okay. So today we're going to dive into 3 aspects of skill instruction. We highlighted the steps for staff, and we know in our time together today, we don't have an opportunity or really the time to talk about all 5 of those components. So in this time, we'll dive into adult SEL skills, which is really the quote Sharon read. That's that piece of SEL that's really starting with us. We'll have some time to talk about relationships, and we'll do that in breakout rooms. And then we'll end with diving into resource swapping around skill instruction. So Sharon set us up really nicely for our adult SEL skills, diving into this. So this was a reflection by a 5th grade teacher when she had done some professional learning around SEL, and that aha moment of, oh, right, it starts with me and us as a staff. So in the chat box, take a look at, these are, of course, the collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learnings, competencies, 5 competencies. And you can see in each competency some of the skills related with that competency. And so I'm curious about us gathered in the circle, what you've learned about yourself during the pandemic. What have you learned about your own SEL skills, your strengths, and your challenges? So take a minute, just reflect on that. What have you learned about yourself? Maybe unexpectedly, where have you seen your strengths in terms of SEL skills? And what have your challenges been as we've been in this together? So I'll just give folks a moment to do that.
Or if you're more comfortable unmuting, feel free to unmute and just talk because we're such a small group.
We are. That is also a possibility. I don't know if it's maybe a little bit of a difficult question to reflect on our own experience in the pandemic. Maybe it's a deep question that does take some reflection time. Hi, go ahead.
I think self-management became suddenly a priority because I suddenly found myself not being as active as before. And when we first had the lockdown last year, suddenly the outdoors was basically non-existent and you just kept walking the neighborhood. And that proved difficult at times because you really try to keep your distance. Now it sort of has normalized, but still I find myself less active. And then I'm stressed out about that because then you have to adjust everything else. And so you have to motivate yourself more. So you have to sort of be more introspective to try and get that under control. And what I miss most is the direct contact with other people and hanging out, for example, at a Starbucks or at another venue, just a location in town. And so that has been really difficult. And I think then you stop talking and you sort of become more introvert than you usually are. And communication becomes a little more difficult, I think.
Thanks, Suzanne, for giving us a name for that self-management challenge there in the pandemic. And then Kelly, I see that a strength is connections, actually, and really thinking about connecting in different ways. And right, that also the connections and then that being a challenge too. Labeling feelings. Teresa, thanks. I really connect with you on that one. That's been hard for me. So I really appreciate tools like the mood meter that helps us develop that common language. So optimism, empathy, self-motivation, boy, things that we've really had to learn. From Angie, thanks. I've had to challenge my level of self-management and self-awareness. So those connections around self-management, labeling feelings, helpful technique there. Surprised to see for myself, the building unexpected relationships online has been really important coping strategy. Thanks for that, Vanessa. Let's see, challenges, Nathan, from you, managing stress, empathy, communicating clearly, strengths, building relationships, understanding norms, recognizing supports. Yeah. Anybody want to unmute? What do you notice as we've reflected together? What do you notice? What jumps out to you? Anybody want to unmute or type into the chat box? I'm noticing that self-management seems to be a common thread there, that both the strategies that are working and then the challenges. Glomming on to someone when I get to chat with them in person. Thanks, Shauna, that really makes me smile because I really resonate with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been teaching and coaching online. And so I found that the people that appear in these regular Zooms that I run, they have become their own community over time. And we even had a celebration on Zoom, which is, something new. But we had music and we had festive backgrounds. And like this morning, we had our coffees, some people brought other beverages. And so I think the need to connect on whatever level possible is really strong. And over time, you can find sort of a normalcy. So we were funny, we were serious, we went to our resources and everything, and it almost became normal, except that you couldn't touch people per se.
Yeah, and I think that you have really set us up into our moving into this conversation about Workday self-regulation and resilience. Like, how are we building into our way of being right now when it is online, and that is how we are connecting, and we aren't able to touch each other physically anymore? How are we building in Workday resilience? Ricky Robertson has done a lot of work with the Alaska Staff Development Network. I would recommend his recorded webinars on resilience if you have a chance to get on ASDN's website and look at the recorded webinars. He talks about bite-sized resilience. How do we embed it right in our work day? So we've got our self-care plan and things that we're doing for ourselves outside of the work day. And what are we building into our work day that are small, quick things that keep us connected, keep us managing ourselves through the day? So that's the next chat box opportunity or unmuting. The question is, how do you regulate yourself right during the work day? What are you doing to take care of yourself during the work day? And maybe that's something that you're doing privately, like between your classes or Zoom meetings. Maybe it's something you're building right into your practice with students. You're building in grounding activities like we have time to do together. So in the chat box or unmute, what are some things that you are doing to self-regulate during the school day? Thanks, Laurel. Exercise breaks throughout the day. So important. What else are folks doing? Love that, Vanessa. 10 squats every hour. I've got my yellow sticky note here. I'm writing that down. 10 squats. And I think I might need to set my alarm to do that, so I remember to do that. What else are folks doing? Okay, thanks, Nathan, for that reflection. Often neglect to do it during the day. And like I said, I need to set an alarm because I get so engrossed in things that I forget. So setting an alarm is one thing that I do to remind myself of that. Grounding practices and mindfulness breaks during the day. Using a standing desk, that's been helpful to me, is to stand and sit throughout the day. Going outside. So building in those times of like going to get yourself a cup of tea, and again, just those daily things that we do, how can we tweak them just a little bit to help us regulate ourselves? Just work straight through. Having those people to decompress with. One thing that I think it's Ricky Robertson talks about is that when we have that safe person to decompress with, instead of rehashing what happened with that person, taking that opportunity to talk about our feelings and emotions is really where some of the power of decompressing can come in. So again, that importance of having an emotional vocabulary. Standing desks, okay. All right, thanks, Nathan. We were happy to have you here as long as we could have you. We know that your energy and attention is pulled in different ways. So one of our agreements definitely is take care of yourself, and we encourage that, we support that. Okay, make ordinary process like having to into a priority measure. Yeah, choosing your favorite cup, picking a special tea. So those almost like creating the sacred in the midst of the ordinary that can help us stay grounded and focused. All right, thanks for those ideas. So we did want to pause one moment here, just like a 20-second pause. And we'd like you to set a goal for yourself around your own SEL skills. You know, we've talked about our strengths and our challenges a little bit ago. And so I'd really like you to think about something that you would like to maybe try out. Like I wrote down, Vanessa, you're 10 squats every hour. So that's a goal I'm going to set for myself. And I'm going to try it out this afternoon. I'm going to set my timer and I'm going to try out these 10 squats. And so I'm just going to pause here for 20 seconds to give you a chance to set a goal for your own SEL skill development. Write it down, sticky note, piece of scrap paper. We're going to come back to these goals in our closing activity. So I'm just going to pause briefly, write down a goal. No need to share it in chat. Welcome to share it in chat if you'd like to. But as we've had this conversation around our own SEL skills, what's one thing, a goal that you'll set for yourself? We know that setting goals is one of the SEL competencies. So, hey, yay us for putting that into practice. Give it a quick pause while you consider. And while you are considering that goal, writing it down, I think there's power in writing goals down. So that's why we ask you to take a moment and write it down. Let's just pause as we transition to our next conversation topic. And we actually have already been talking about relationship building. We can see how entwined our own SEL skills are with building relationships. So we'll take a quick pause and do another centering activity. Got a resource here for you that is the Capacitar Emergency Response Toolkit, which Linda Chamberlain, Dr. Linda Chamberlain, who folks probably know, introduced me to this resource. And we've got the link there for you. It's a lot about breathing, movement. There are some handholds to manage different emotions. So when you get the PDF of our slides, make sure to check out this resource. And this is one that I've really tried to build into my transition time between meetings and things. So this is one of the Tai Chi energy exercises in the resource, and it's called Flying Through the Air. And I really like it because it makes me kind of feel like a superhero. And hey, I want to feel like a superhero in the midst of all of this. So I'm going to do it seated, but you could do it standing. And this is a screenshot from the resource. And so if you want to do it standing, you would be moving your arms and your legs at the same time. But I'm just going to move my arms as I stay seated. And it really is that motion of flying. So moving your arms out in front of you as you breathe. And if you're standing, you are moving your legs out behind you. So feel free to turn off your camera if that makes it more comfortable to try this out. Feel free to just sit and breathe for a little bit if you want to, but fly through the air. Feel that freedom of flying through the air, moving your body. Shake it out a little bit. Sharon's doing that motion that feels good to her in moving her body. So move your body a little bit, breathe, and then turn your cameras back on when you're ready, if you'd like to, and talk a little bit about relationship building, which again, our conversation has been leading us to. So the quote that you see on the slide is from a middle school principal who participated in our Tuesday Toolkit webinar series that happened in the fall as we explored each of the components of transforming schools. And so he said, you know, I fancy myself a natural rapport builder. And it was in the breakout group sessions that he had this self-reflection that really he was great at building rapport with the students that were easy for him to build rapport with. But those students who he perceived as disengaged, that he wasn't putting intentional energy into building relationships with them. So I really appreciated his commitment coming out of these Toolkit Tuesday webinars to really be thinking about relationship building in a different way. And one thing, a way to think about relationship building is relationship building that's intentional. And I wanted to highlight this resource that is from Edutopia. And it's a focus practice for relationship building. And it's called 5x5 assessment. And so the article is from a teacher who each day thinks of 5 students that he's going to be intentional and deliberate about reflecting on and then connecting with during the day. And I just really appreciated his reflection questions about students and thinking in that holistic way. So take a look at the questions. And then he also says that he monitors his emotions. Isn't that sort of an interesting reflection point, to be thinking about what's our emotional reaction to students that we're working with? And then his commitment to interacting with those students in that day. So example there of a very intentional way and a structured way to think about relationships. One of the other resources from Edutopia that helps us think about relationship building in a systematic way is a tracking form. And so the teacher who has the 5x5 assessment, he didn't talk about how he records his reflections, but Edutopia has a tracking form, and very simple, like great, easy to make something like that, to record those reflections. This is around establishing relationships, what's working to establish relationships with students, to maintain, and then this piece around restoring relationships, taking some notes on and reflecting on how do we restore relationships with students when things go sideways. So again, these are 2 helpful resources. And then the last example of relationship building that we wanted to offer was relationship building in a systemic way. And this is a relationship mapping activity that comes from Harvard, making Caring Common project through Harvard. And it's a school-wide strategy about really tracking students and relationships that they have with adults in the building. And they've got a, they've had this activity, and they have an online version now as we're in this virtual world together. So I would recommend checking out this strategy if you are in a position to support school-wide or systems level thinking about relationship building. So, wow, I've been talking a lot, and so you're tired of hearing from me and very keen to hear from each other, I think. So we are going to move into breakout rooms, and Sharon has been queen of all things breakout. while I was blah, blah, blah. And so she's got us set up into breakout rooms. And what we'd like you to do when you get into your room is have a quick conversation about roles. Who's willing to be timekeeper? Who's willing to be facilitator? Is somebody willing to take notes? And who would be willing to report out very briefly? Just give a 1-minute report when we come back together. Again, setting group roles, great strategies for supporting ourselves in building our SEL skills. And then do a round 1 introductions. Go around the circle, share your name, your community, your role, and share with the group, again, just in that 1 minute, so everybody has time, which students and or families do you most easily connect with? Who is it hard for you to connect with? So that reflection that middle school principal did, just do that briefly and share out with the group. Who is it easy for you to connect with? Who is it hard for you to connect with? That's just, actually, I 30 seconds for each person to share that briefly. And then once everybody has introduced themselves, then it's going into a group discussion on what are the ways that you do, what are the ways that you use to be deliberate in relationship building? What have you seen your colleagues doing? What ideas are percolating in the conversation? So intentional and systematic. Do a quick brainstorm on that. We do have for you a Google Doc to record your notes. We really found in the Tuesday Toolkit webinar series that the notes from the breakout room turned into an amazing colleague generated resource. So we would ask you if you're able to take some notes. And you'll find a place to record who's taking on what role, a place to record your intentional and systematic strategies. And then point number 4 there will be in our second breakout go around. So just if you could do directions 1 through 3. Okay. Any questions about our process right now before we move into breakout rooms? So here are our overall directions, and you've seen our notes document. And thanks Sharon for posting our notes document in the chat box so people should be able to access them. And Sharon, how long do we have in our breakout rooms?
We have about 15 minutes.
About 15 minutes for this conversation.
And so I've put them in 2 breakout rooms because Vanessa has to leave and Suzanne has to leave. And so that'll put about 5 or 6 in each group.
Okay, great. And,
all right, we ready to go?
Yeah, sounds good.
And somebody from the group grab the link from the chat box for the note-taking document. And I will open all the rooms. There they go.
Okay. So timer is set for 15 minutes and then they'll get a minute to come back.
It didn't give me the option for a timer.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
You have to click on, there's a little gear icon.
I probably can't do that now, but
yeah, probably can't set it right now.
But I've got it in my head.
Okay.
I
And so
wrote
maybe,
down what,
and we can broadcast messages to them.
yeah.
Okay.
We are doing really well with time, so.
Yeah. It's,
which is good.
yeah. Yeah, it's not a very maybe I don't have it set up so that people are really chatting, or people aren't wanting to chat in the opportunities that we have.
Well, people don't seem very chatty today.
Mhm.
So it's good though.
Maybe there's some learning about doing a breakout room first thing
Yeah.
for people to get comfortable talking.
Are they in the document? Let's look. Yeah, there's a bunch of people in the document. So
Right. Yeah, good. So somebody hopefully in each
mhm.
group.
And it's nice when we create these note-taking things, because then we can also use them at another point in time. You know,
Mhm.
then they're already there. The template is anyway. Feel free to get up and do a stretch break.
Yeah, I like Vanessa's idea about 10 squats every hour.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't have everybody check in the gathering circle in the chat. We had, what, 17 participants? So probably had 15 participants, but not everybody checked in. Guess that's okay.
Yeah.
Challenge by choice. I think I am gonna run and do a bathroom break.
Yep. Me too.
Okay. Be back. Do you want to go and I'll, okay.
Get up and move around.
Should we broadcast a message? Is about 10 more minutes at this point.
Yep. Broadcasted.
Yeah. So you that gear box sets up like when you type in you want you know, like 4 to 5 people in the room, you have it set up, and then the gearbox icon is at the lower left corner, and if you
Okay.
click on that, it brings up a menu where you can set a timer. You
Okay.
can,
Usually it automatically pops up, but I didn't see it this time. But
yeah,
thanks.
if you don't see it, you can access it there.
Awesome. I'll remember that when we send them off again.
People are taking notes. I see.
Mhm.
He's tracking on the spreadsheet, taking notes. I forget what the timing is when we were going to be at the,
At 10:15, we were going to be at their bio break. So we're good.
okay. Great. What are you snacking on?
Nuts. A bowl of nuts. I try to only have healthy things to snack on.
I appreciate that about you when we're in person, the snacks that you bring.
I can't do grapes anymore.
What do you mean?
They jack up my blood sugar. Eat grapes.
Oh, grapes. Oh, that's too bad. I loved when you had always.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I can't do grapes.
I've been eating a lot of dates, which I don't think are very good. I bet they jack up my blood sugar.
Yes, Vanessa. Did you miss me?
I missed you so much. I'm actually trying to hop out because I'm going to jump to the other one. But thank you guys both so much. This was really rich. I really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Fine.
Vanessa.
You too.
Bye.
I hope to connect with you soon, Heather.
Definitely. I look forward to that.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Probably need.
Thank you so much for taking those notes and recording your ideas. Like we said, we found in that Tuesday Toolkit webinar series that the notes from the groups turned out to be a really remarkable resource from the state. So thanks for that. So we're keen to hear from each group.
Okay. So we're going to do some reporting out, and let's start with room 1. Group 1, and I believe the reporter is Lynn.
It is, and I can see Angie's notes, but I'm gonna have to shut you guys off and only be able to look at the notes. So if I look at the screen funny, reason why.
No worries.
Give me just a second to go back to the notes. Where'd they go? Hang on. Your screen is covering my whole computer. How do I get to them?
Boy, that's the tricky part about Zoom, isn't it? Is navigating all of the windows.
Yeah, well, you've shared your screen, so that's all I can see. I can't get back to my notes.
Let me stop share.
Oh,
How about that?
oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, Kelly was our facilitator. Angie took our notes. Suzanne kept the time, and of course, I'm reporting out. In the introductions for each person, we have myself as the CTE district-wide counselor. Teresa's a health teacher. We have someone in the group that was a nurse, and I don't remember her name. And I don't remember some of the others.
I think Teresa was the nurse, Lynn. Sorry, my notes are, I was trying to listen and take notes, but.
Oh, yeah, I feel your pain on that one. Students or families, what happened here? Students or families do you most easily connect with? I kind of screwed things up when we started talking because I covered every subject area at the same time instead of us breaking them up for the sake of time. Intentional. How can you be intentional in reaching out to all your students, particularly those that are hardest for you to connect with? What I have said is I don't usually let people see that it's difficult for me to reach them. I just make it work. Anybody that I have trouble working with, meeting them, they never know it. Teresa said that she says it's very difficult living in the same community where she works, being as she's with virtual 24/7 right now, getting to actually get away from her students and people is extremely difficult. She doesn't have an ability to do that right now. And she is a health teacher there in Barrow, I believe. Laurel states she connects through the food banks and her local community. It was Laurel that's the school nurse. Suzanne coaches and teaches and connects through health and wellness, also as a nurse. Kelly is at an alternative high school in Juneau, and her she uses strength-based ways to connect with students, popping into the classrooms unexpected, acknowledging their participation, and working with virtual learners. We all discuss this fact that stress is involved with our simultaneous ways to use the in-person and virtual working with people. She uses personalized communication where as being a counselor virtual right now with her at-home learners from her middle school, she said if she reaches out to an individual by name and not a mass email, she's gotten responses back from either the student or the parent 100% of the time, whereas if it's a mass correspondence, she doesn't get that. Systemically, what you can do to ensure system relationship building. I intentionally speak and listen to everybody. Teresa uses monthly emails and packets. All of this is virtual this year, but she will be transitioning to some school, half school, half online learning through her school district. They're looking at for fourth quarter. She's got some concerns about that. And we had a conversation about it, which I know she will be reaching out to Sharon about that. Teaches health and wellness to adults and hopes to expound on that with a health coach with training that she recently obtained through Mayo Clinic. Kelly is looking for the positives, which bless her heart, we all are at this point. Angie is specific with her personal communications as well for keeping the relationship building going.
Awesome. So let's go to group 2. And group 2 didn't say who their reporter outer is. So who's going to be reporting out for group 2?
Well, I guess since I took the notes, I'll go ahead and report out. For looking at some of the kids that we could easily reach, primary students and one with challenges were some of the ones that Julie, so that she could easily reach at-risk students. I had mentioned difficulty reaching when I was in the classroom. I could reach both the high-end and really engaged kids and those that were having difficulty, but sometimes I'd miss that middle of the road, that quiet, engaged, nice kiddo, you know, that's just kind of sitting and going along with the with what's going on in the classroom. So we started talking more kind of classroom and group for intentional, because some of us are in the classroom, some of us are health providers, and we talked about the intentional piece was actually keeping data on a spreadsheet or on a clipboard and making sure that we were just reaching everybody and with either tally marks, some type of strategy that we had so that we could make sure that we were connecting with everybody, you know, on our rosters. Also, SEL standards for teachers, just saying, you know, having that available for people to look at and use would be helpful in an intentional way of incorporating the SEL strategies in the groups of children that you're working with. Systematic, again, is that note-taking or strategies in the classroom, just keeping those positive interactions going with students.
Okay, Heather, you want to share your screen again?
I was taking a moment, I was distracted for a moment with my yellow sticky notes as I was writing down what I want my relationship building goal to be, because I was writing down a couple of things from both groups. So yeah, let me share my screen, because before we go on our bio break, we would ask you to set a relationship building goal for yourself. So let me share my screen so you can see the directions for that. So if you could please take a moment to consider the strategies that you heard in your small group conversation and just now in our report out. And big thanks to Lynn and to you, Jana, for being brave and being the recorder. And thanks to each person for taking on the roles that you did in your small groups. So choose one new idea you're inspired to try out. What was something that you heard that you'd like to set a goal around? And write it down on your yellow sticky note. Our closing activity is going to involve our goals. So just take a moment, write it down. Pause just one moment for you to do that. And then we are going to go on a 5-minute bio break. And on your 5-minute bio break, take care of your needs and also make sure to bring back your favorite mug, because when we come back, we're going to have a toast. So make sure that you have your favorite mug handy when we come back. So I will have this timer going. We'll meet back at 10:20. And the timer will also help us keep track of time. Okay, have a good break. Our struggles and the ways that we are supporting each other and finding that inner resource in ourselves. So cheers, cheers, chin chin, chin chin, slantaya. Anybody have a toast that's in a different language that you like to offer? Anybody want to unmute and offer a toast in English
Greek
or another
is-
language?
For any of you who like Greek or Greek, it's Yasis.
Yasis. Yasis. Anybody else? Slanchaya was in Gaelic. All right. Okay, well, cheers to us. The superheroes that you are. Well, to wrap up this last piece of time together, and we want to make sure that we give enough of a break between sessions too. So our last piece is around direct skill instruction. And I'm guessing that this is a piece that has probably came up in your small group conversation. I love this quote that you're seeing on the screen. Math is often a scary subject for students, one that many have a history of not succeeding in. With SEL, we've created a safe environment in which students are willing to try and are willing to persevere. I've seen my students become brave learners who actually want to come to school and who strive towards academic achievement. And this was written by a high school math teacher after in Anchorage, after a course, a 1-credit course on SEL and a comprehensive approach to SEL. And I love that because I think it really is reflective of what direct skill instruction can do for students. And boy, thinking about our own experiences in the pandemic and then thinking about our students, how important this is right now. So I am interested, as you think about your students and what you're seeing in your students. We reflected for ourselves, and now let's reflect on our students. What have you learned about your students during the pandemic? Where are their strengths and where are their challenges? So I'd invite people to write in the chat box and also to unmute and tell us verbally. What have you seen in your students when it comes to the SEL competencies?
Well, I'm going to shout out verbally. For my students, we've been virtual the entire school year. And those students who are okay using technology and are okay working alone have thrived and are doing an amazing job. Those students that already that really liked being in the classroom, they're having a hard time making that commitment to come to virtual school. Their schedules are all over the place. And the ones that were already disconnected prior to COVID are still disconnected. No contact, no communication, no way to interact with those students. And I'm worried about the ones that are in that middle. I'm seeing work being turned in at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, I can't help you at those hours, and we're supposed to be going partially in person in a week. And students still have yet to put themselves in a schedule. And I try to set them up with schedules and say, try to wake yourself up, talking about all those SEL, get yourselves up and going in the morning, pretend like it's a real school day, find your own personal space. If you can't use online, at least make a phone call to me. Let's make that connection. And I don't have the numbers. We just did the math, and I think we have 180 some students that have failed one or more core classes out of 250. So we only have 100 students that are making progress for graduation at any level. And I don't know how to fix it, and we're going to have to pick up the pieces, and that's a lot of students. And so this has been really challenging for us here in the smaller communities.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I saw lots of nodding heads. That really, that is, seems like a shared experience of those struggles. Yeah. And that really highlighting the challenge of relationship building and then the challenge of supports. Yeah. Maybe that question of how do we go about redefining progress? Because it seems like the way we've been defining progress in the past, we really have to throw out the window right now and think about what does support and progress look like now in our current situation, and that struggle with what does it look like? Thanks. What about from other folks who were nodding their heads like, well, yeah, that sounds familiar, either in chat or unmute and tell us what you're seeing in students.
I can speak just for the middle school level.
Please.
As a counselor, we know the importance of the social emotional aspect, and that's where at our core, that's how we move forward. So we sort of get that, but when I'm working with like the top-notch teachers in our building who are doing the Apex and to teach, it just is such a shift for them. And they do take some of it personally and like they should be doing more. But I can guarantee you with the staff we have at Teolin, they cannot do more. Like they've created as much and as much flexibility. And so I think for maybe health teachers or counselors and administrators, we just need to recognize teachers are working their tails off and they are giving it the best they can and trying to make in school back and forth, at home, in school. We have some families that have switched 4 and 5 times for all different reasons. And so they just get a Google Classroom set up. They just get assignments going in Apex. So it's just it's almost like forced mediocrity, but we need to know we're doing the best we can and give ourselves some shout out. And I just tell the teachers all the time, like, I see you. I know you've already emailed and called, there's no doubt. So it's just that recognition maybe.
I see you, Shauna. Thanks. That observation. We need to give ourselves, our families, our children a lot of grace this year, like you were talking about, and that acknowledgement. And that we're taking slowly by slowly, these baby steps forward. And that's what we can do now. Yeah. Thanks for that. What else?
Although like I said before, I'm not one-on-one with students anymore. But one thing that I've really picked up on is all of us know people are creatures of habit, and that children are no exception. And when you take a child from their norm of Monday through Friday, you will up at this time and you will board the bus, or you will rock, or we will drive you there. You will be in class and you will be able to engage and be involved with your fellow classmates. That's their norm. And when you remove that and you think they're going to tap into Zoom meetings, or you're at home, but you still have class at 8 o'clock, you should be sitting down. Well, we all know that's not going to happen. So we've upset their apple cart completely. And then those of us on the other side who are supposed to be seeing these children through and expecting them to be as successful as they normally are in a classroom are beating ourselves up because why, what else can I do? You can't do more if they don't meet you halfway. And that habit is, you just blew their habit right out of the water. So, there isn't much else you can say or do other than what you're already doing. And until we can have these children back in their norm and get them back in their routine, it's going to be an uphill battle with, Teresa's got 180 kids who are failing classes. How many of those kids would have struggled if they would have kept their norm and been in school every day? Deduct those off of that number of 180 and then look at it realistically and know that, hey, this group of them wouldn't have done well to begin with, but this group of them, because we took them away from their normal habits of education and structure, fell through the crack. I think it will be a lot easier to bite off when you do that and then you go, oh, well, maybe I had 40 kids that would have made it if they were in school, but not all of them, because we all know not every student tries, until something switches in their brain, they don't feel the need or whatever. So, I mean, it's just my 2 cents on it, but I just think because we have upset their norm, until we can bring that norm back, we're not going to see it. But don't beat yourself up for it, because everybody is doing 110% of what they can possibly be expected to do.
I think you bring up a couple of things. I connect what you're saying back to our conversation about being intentional and systematic about relationship building. So like really keeping track of those outreaches to students so that when we are back in a place together, we have that data like, oh, look at these attempts and the ways that we reached out to students and families. Wow, we are really going to need to put some extra energy and attention, because here's this whole group of students and families that we lost during the pandemic, like we were outreaching to and we didn't connect with. So that to me really speaks powerfully about needing to track relationships and be intentional about. And then the other piece, like you were talking about, the importance of routines and structures, norms, like those safe containers. How do we build those safe containers for students to land in now, and then particularly when we're back together in the fall, and when we're back into that routine, that in and out and changing, oh my goodness, for students and families and us. And then that third point of grace and extending grace to ourselves. Why is it hard for us to extend that grace to ourselves? We can extend it to colleagues, but not to ourselves. So those are 3 points that are really connecting with me. What about anybody else, what you're seeing in students? And then we'll wrap up this piece with a little bit of brainstorming around the resources that you're seeing. And we'll do that together. We won't go into our breakout rooms again. Anybody else want to speak out what you're seeing in students? Thanks. Well, what about that question of what's working? I know that I think you were probably already starting to talk about what is working for you. So let's just do some large group brainstorming. What's been working? What resources are you using to build routines? We talked about that. What resources are you using to really be teaching the skills that kids are needing, the SEL skills that kids are needing right now? What's working? And group 2, I know it looked like you were having some conversation about that. So could I invite you to talk about some of the things you were talking about? And I can move over and share what you were talking about.
We were just talking about some different resources that we use in the schools, or that we've done kind of a book group with. The Growth Mindset Coach also has a workbook that goes with it, and it has lesson plans, activities every month for teachers. So we did kind of a class with teachers on that. I can't remember. Oh, and then Julie has a book called The Grit. It's a workbook. She says works really well with students, and she said it would work well with adults. And then I can't remember the name of the book, but Angela Duckworth, she was on TED Talks, also wrote a book about grit. And she really has some great insight because she was a CEO and then changed her career to be a middle school math teacher. And then once she did that, then she really looked at what really helps students be successful in math. And then now she's a researcher about grit. So her journey is just really interesting, and the SEL that she pulls into that. So that's where we were kind of heading on resources and strategies.
Thanks for that. About group one, what are some of the things that you've been using in your practice that you're finding really helpful?
We didn't cover question 4 when we were meeting in our group, but Angie could speak to what it is she's doing to help with resources for her students. I'm going to put her on the spot.
Honestly, I keep them up on my desktop, resources for community resources or for whatever the family might need. I think I'm doing that more than I even ever did when I was in-house and in building. And I think it's just letting them know there's some normalcy in other families needing support and help right now. And so I do try to just let them know everyone's hurting and struggling. Like, this is a lot. And we have that discussion, but resources for families and kids are just, community, or Teelan's lucky enough to have our full circle, like therapeutic counselors that come in, and they're even willing to do telehealth with families and kids. So I feel very fortunate with the program and what we can offer at Teelan. But I think it's a matter of just giving families more information, because we think of it all the time, but I just don't think they know what to even ask for and what their need is. And so I will just say, have you considered, such as a food bank, have you considered families in transition, because you actually are living with an auntie right now, or you're living at a different place. So I think internet services have been a struggle. I think in our district, and having families have solid internet. But I just communicate all the time with our administration and say, we need you to okay this for this family. Like, I'm going to advocate until they tell me no. And usually we will find a way to get families what they need.
Thanks for that. It sounds like lots of strengths in the community in terms of resources that are available. And again, like, I think about that tracking piece of how are we keeping track of the resources that are being suggested to families and who's needing resources, so that we can put our extra energy into where we need it. Yeah. I see, Laurel, you were talking about, we need to remind them that this is temporary, like reminding ourselves and families that like clouds, this is going to shift and change. So that ability to believe in that in the midst when it doesn't feel like that. I started to look for a resource list that I have. I don't know why I don't have it handy, so I'll continue to look for that. But it's a resource list from SEL at a distance that has a bunch of resources in. So I'm going to make sure I pull a PDF of that into the chat box too for some of those concrete resources. So I'll do that. I'll make sure that we get that in. Anybody else? resources that you've been finding are helpful in your practice around SEL skills?
I have a Wellness Wednesday, and I try to share with my students some sort of mindfulness, any of the SEL. I try to just pick and choose, try to make it match the unit I'm teaching. And I'll pull some things off of a digital resource centervention with some of those ideas, but I just apply some of those health related skills and give them a task for the day. For example, like go outside for 10 to 15 minutes, and I want you to pay attention to what do you see, feel, and hear while you're outside, and come back inside and journal about it and place that in your journal. Another activity I've given them is I want you to set a timer for 10 minutes, and I just want you to doodle on your journal entry a title page, or create something on your title page that's about you. And so I try to use a lot of those little things on a Wednesday for just a short period of time, 20 minutes for them, to show them that there's other things they could work on and do at home to keep themselves safe and healthy at home.
Boy, those connections to that, those centering, those grounding things that we've been doing, and having that real tangible like toolbox that kids can tap into now while they're at home, and then continuing that on when we're in person. Love those ideas. And anybody else before we move into setting our SEL goal, or while we set our SEL goal? Thank you for those resources. So same thing that we've done in our other two components. If you could take a brief moment and think about the resources that you've heard, and set a quick goal for yourself for the skill instruction piece. What's one new strategy that you want to try out? So while you think about that, getting the resource list for you. I am not very successfully getting that resource list for you. So sorry about that. So we will just move on. One of the things about SEL skill instruction is that it doesn't need to be a standalone, like over there, a special thing. It can be infused throughout the day. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to debrief and have conversations about SEL skills throughout the day. So just to kind of model that for us, I wondered, as you're thinking about our time together, what are two specific SEL skills you saw yourself or your colleagues using today in our time together? Again, a way to just be having conversations about SEL skills. And I put in a resource there that gives good questions to debrief SEL skills. Again, that you could be using in a math class, you could be using in a science class. So quick thoughts on SEL skills we were using together today. Either chat or verbally sharing out. Self-awareness, relationship. Yeah, lots of opportunity to, great. Thanks, Angie, for posting that resource list while I'm not getting my resource list together. Thank you for putting that in. Really appreciate that. Okay. So thanks for practicing self-awareness and relationship skills today. One other opportunity for our closing was hopeful we could do a quick go around. Sorry about that. a quick go around, and let's just do this verbally and practice that competency around setting a goal. That's one of the 5 competencies. So what is one of the goals that you've set for yourself today? And I'll start. The goal that I have set for myself is the 10 squats every hour that Vanessa offered. I thought that was great. And I also set for myself, somebody had the idea of checking off SEL competencies. So that has me thinking about how could I do that more intentionally, have a checklist of competencies where I'm tracking the competencies that I'm focusing on. So thanks for that. Sharon, could I invite you to do a quick checkout with a goal that you've set for yourself?
To get up and move every hour, because I can be in meetings like this all day long, like a lot of you. So get up and move.
Thanks. And Angie, could I invite you to share one of your goals?
I want to continue starting my day. I literally write down on sticky notes, and now I have an entire door in my house full of sticky notes that say 2 things I'm grateful for. So before my feet hit the floor out of bed, I'm thinking of the 2 things because it refocuses my day to the positive. So it's worked. So I'm going to keep doing it even when I can return back to my building.
Love it. Thanks, Angie. How about Jana? How about for you? I'm just going down the participant menu.
I guess my goal would, well, I just continue my morning workouts. And kind of like Angie, I spend, make sure that I spend a quiet time reading my Bible and just starting my day with some quiet meditation.
Thanks for that. And Julie, how about from you, one goal that you have set for yourself?
One goal, well, I do get up and do every morning, do prayer and meditation myself, scripture reading. And I actually exercise almost every day, either hike a mountain or go for a 10-mile run. So I feel like those things are in place. I think what I need to do is, gratitude is my login for work. So being deliberate about letting other people know that I'm grateful for them. I do a pretty good job of thinking things I'm grateful for, but I need to let other people know that are important to me that I'm grateful for them.
Thanks for highlighting gratitude. That is so important, so crucial. And let's see, how about Lynn? Did we get a chance to hear from you?
Well, there's been so much discussed in the last hour or more. There's been a few things. Sharon talked about purposefully getting up and moving around every hour or so. Well, I don't do that for myself when I'm at the office. I find that hours pass and I haven't moved an inch. And so I think I want to set that goal. But my husband and I recently started a new goal about a week ago of making a trek all the way around our lake every evening together. Because he's retired, he's home all day working on projects here and isn't out and getting any stimulation outside. So that's my big goal, is to continue that to help, the both of us. So after 44 years of marriage, we still like to walk together. So I guess it's okay.
Thanks for that, Lynn. And thanks, Laurel. 10 crunches before goal setting, mindfulness, Shauna, expanding on relationship with families, the families you work with beyond the basics, stretching, getting more moving, yet tracking, tally mark idea. Great, thanks. Tanya, Teresa, thing from you on goals?
And
I was going to say it's going to sound silly, but yes, the representative and I have agreed that the 10 squats is a really good one that we should adapt. And then I brought up, I know somebody else who actually, they have their office do 30 seconds of planking once a day. I don't know that we're ready for that, but it's a thought we can put out there.
Right.
My goals are just, I try to get up and walk around so I don't sit in meetings at a desk working all day long, and try to make sure that I maintain relationships with my colleagues as much as I can in a reasonable way, instead of just realizing it's been a week and I've hardly talked to anyone.
Great, thanks for that. And Teresa, how about from you?
Taking more time to really take care of me. During this time, I make all these suggestions for everyone else on how to take care of themselves, but I don't actually do it myself. So I need to get back in doing the 5 to 10 minutes, getting on the bike and actually forcing myself to do it, doing those extra 10 squats. I think about it, but I never just get out of the chair and actually do it. So I think putting it actually into action, I need to come back to that.
Right. Thanks for that reminder that just thinking about it is the first step. Well, I've posted 2 things in the chat box. I've posted a flyer about joining this online SEL community, trauma engaged community. So check that out. Be a great way to continue the conversation. And I've also put in our slides that have resource links. I am going to find that SEL distance resource page and send that to Pat so he can send that out to everyone. So I'll make sure that you get that as well. So Sharon, any last closing comments from you, or I'll open it up to any last closing comments from anyone?
Thank you for joining us on our journey today. Heather and I will be doing this again next Wednesday, and keep doing what you're doing. It's hard work. You're going to hear me for the next 45 minutes after this with Pat. So I look forward to seeing you in the next session.
Thanks, everyone.